Hey everyone, I don't think we've done one of these sit down and talk videos for a while now, but there's a perfectly good topic to kind of talk about at the moment, and that is Overdress Set 4. Now, I think we've seen quite a lot of hype regarding that set, and I guess the question is what happens after Set 4? Because Set 4 actually did so well, there's definitely some things they can learn from it and implement going forward. Now, if you don't know, if you've been, kind of doing Christmas things, it's fine. But yeah, Set 4 was huge, right? Big impact. If you look at the prices across the board, they're big, huge numbers. They've apparently been sold out everywhere in Japan. If you didn't pre-order, you have no luck, at least in Tokyo, right? And it's given a lot of, I think people are saying this is the awakening of the Twin Blade set for Overdress, which is 100% true, right? There's a lot of things going for it, a lot of similarities as well. This is kind of the ending of the first arc. I mean, there's been 2 seasons of Overdress. First one, a lot of people were like, I guess. A second one, there's been a lot of hype going into it. They've been saying second season is very good. So yeah, you've got a lot of hype going into that. Then you had WGB Tokyo occurring just after the release of Set 4, which is definitely going to drive up a lot of prices. But also a lot of big changes are happening with Set 4 compared to the other sets, right? In the original Awakening of the Twin Blades, they gave cross rides, and they gave very popular clans cross rides. And you could say kind of the same thing, similar, in Set 4 here, in Overdress Set 4, which is, a lot of the popular start deck clans got huge upgrades in terms of grade 4s, which are kind of the cross rides currently. But they've really kind of changed the game. They've had a big impact on the game. If you think about what has been happening with all the releases for Overdress, this has been probably the biggest impact. The second being maybe Lyrical Monastery, introducing like six big ride lines. Well, not 6 big ride lines, at least 2 of them were really big. But they had a huge impact there as well, releasing like tier 1 decks. But apart from that, overall, ever since the beginning of Set 1 Overdress, like Set 2 and Set 3, kind of a bit of a snooze fest, So, a lot of factors going into why Set 4 has been really popular, and that just means a lot of it can kind of be replicated, or we can kind of predict this, right? If you were an old Vanguard player, if you've been playing since 10 years ago, right, a long time ago, you could kind of see how Bushi kind of does their things, right? Usually at the beginning of a season is pretty hype, right? A lot of cool stuff. Then midway through, they're trying to give all the clans the same amount of power, which, depending on the clan, can be a big miss. Like Great Nature, right? Great Nature, Old Dark Irregular. I guess Old Dark had that edgy concept, basic Great Nature, right? Great Nature. But then at the end of each season, usually there's a big amount of power that is introduced, big changes, and everyone gets happy, right? Everyone gets happy. The meta deck kind of changes to a new meta deck. But yeah, things happen. So if you were looking at how the Overdress sets were going forward, you probably put kind of went, okay, Set 2 wasn't very big, but Set 3 and Set 4, probably Set 4 end of the season probably has something big going for it. And I mean, they did release like titles for the anime series going forward, so you can kind of go, yeah, there's probably something big in the works, right? What is the next progression for your Set 3, not for Set 3, for Overdress, like a grade 3 ride lines? Well, maybe there's a cross ride, like they've been doing cross rides for a while, maybe a grade 4. So yeah, I think, if you could probably see this coming for a mile away, at least for a couple of months. And I guess here is when I tell you, if you haven't pre-ordered your case splits, you probably want to do that. If you want to buy case, seems like a pretty value case, to be fair. A lot of things, very good value coming from that. But I guess one of the biggest things that I kind of want to say here is, what have we really learned from Set 4? And I guess compared like Set 4 to like Set 2 and 3, what are the biggest differences? Well, one, big changes to the format. If you think about Set 2 and 3, what are the overall changes to the format? Not much. Actually, not much. In fact, I think the biggest change we got that really shaked up the format in terms of like changing like the main ride lines, not like the lyrical ones or like encounter, the main Overdress ones is probably Seraph Snow getting like Macarites, and that's not even that's a promo, right? And that card alone made Seraph Snow like a tier 1 deck, kind of went from tier 2 to a tier 1 deck, right? The other one being Leonard. Leonard being a huge introduction, making Bruce much more better. But in terms of, I guess, results, it hasn't been as dominating as a lot of people predict, but it has. It has. At least Japan's really. We don't really know. We'll know in BRO in a week or so, right? And if you haven't signed up for it, you should do it now. All right. But yeah, Leonard, big impact. I guess Derek is kind of a big impact too. You got Arcs, Marino Arcs, but that was out in set 1. So Urja, okay, that was a good one too. So you had several cool rear guards effects, like being really good, like good rear guards being introduced, but nothing that is super meta breaking. I think nothing that makes you go, I want cards now, you know. And that's also one of the reasons why, if you look at the prices for set 2 and 3, they've been very, very poor, right? Poor as in low. So if you were a store selling singles, you were sad, right? You felt very bad because you're cracking product that you're making a loss on. Even the SPs, the SP prices have been terrible. There was just nothing really much hyping those 2 sets. But set 4, right? Getting those each of those grade 4s are actually very, very expensive in price, and you can see why, because they've just made such a huge change to the gameplay. Like people, like essentially, if you were playing Bruce, and I've kind of talked about this before, I think in like a video ages back about some criticism of Overdose. Your Vanguard playstyle hasn't really changed that much from set 2 and 3. If you're a Bruce, you're final rushing, you're making like, yeah, cool, you got a Leonard, that's a big change, but you're just doing, you know, kind of the same combo. And usually combos change, or at least the flavor changes, right? But that hasn't changed for over, not a year, probably like, we'll say like 9 months, right? Is it 9 months? Has it been that long? But yeah, it hasn't changed for a while. So people do kind of get triggered, I guess, by just, well, not, I guess, over triggered, by just like nothing changing, because you kind of, if you're playing Bastion, you're kind of playing the same Bastion. Of course, you got like Ragnarok, I guess. It's a much change, kind of the play style of Bastion a bit, but it's not a huge change, right? It's not insane shiny cardboard. But in terms of like your Vanguard as well, it's basically stayed the same, right? Of course, it's good for you know, poor people. Well, not even poor people, just players in general where you don't have to change the Vanguard. But when you're not changing the Vanguard, which is basically the kind of the whole point of the game is your Vanguard, right? The game's Vanguard. Not much. You don't have that vibe where, you know, so much, like you're changing rear guards every single season, every single new release, but the Vanguard being the same, you're kind of like, it's been a while, right? It's been a while. I wish maybe something should change, and of course some people don't like that. They're like, I want to buy cards and sit on it for like as long as I can. And I think that's also the beauty of set 4, right? That's also the beauty of set 4. You can sit on your Bruce, right? Your grade 3 Bruce, and still perform well, right? People's top with grade 3 Bruce. Your Barrow Magnus, that didn't get any new grade 4 support, and that is actually done exceedingly well, right? So I'm like, grade 4 actually adding content for I guess the grade 3 likers or lovers, right? The grade 3ers. But then, you know, having, if you want to change in plays, grade 4 slap on to your old start decks, bam. You know, you have new flavor, you have a new play style, you have a fresh image on your Vanguard, and they have taken some kind of interesting creative changes to, or direction, I guess, with the grade 4s as well. I'm looking at Seraph Snow, you know, that soul destruction, absolutely new mechanic in the format, so in the game, and also it's definitely very interesting to see how this has progressed. Now, going forward, what does it mean, right? If you want to look at it from the old perspective, right? We're going to go into a new season. They haven't really said what the new season is, but we kind of say, like, you know, when they finish a big conclusion, such as here, next season is going to be, it could kind of be like set 6 in the old TCG, right? That was the introduction of Limit Break. I know in English they kind of changed up the set order release, but, you know, new mechanic, big possibility. We can see, like, in regards to the mechanic changes, you know, the grade 4s didn't have Persona Ride. We thought Persona Ride was just going to be the thing for, like, you know, the first few sets. So maybe the next sets they might be changing away from Persona Ride, or maybe they're going to introduce new other mechanics. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see, but we can kind of look at that and go, okay, this is maybe the equivalent of set 6 from ages ago, where they introduced like gold paladins, Angel's Feather, and what was the last one? Narukami, that's right. And also, of course, they're going to introduce new ride lines. I think at some point they're going to start supporting certain ride lines, stop supporting other ride lines in sets, so not every set will support every single ride line. That's just how it is, right? I expect them to just create new ride lines based on what comes out of the anime. And then in the future, of course, you know, if you're a sad panda, you might miss out. Like Greedon might not get a support this ride line, might get support like later on, but the generic support all kind of works together, kind of thing. But yeah, I can kind of see the ride lines will definitely be introduced at least every single set, in my opinion. But then what can they also change, right? Like learning from set 4. It seems people like Vanguard changes, you know, Vanguard changes, or at least big impacts to the meta, not just like changing of the reguards, right? So they could technically just create more grade 4, right? That's not an issue, right? Just grade 4 is easy, just print a 4, print a new effect. The ride line stays the same, so that's also covered. But you know, there's also other, you don't have to release grade 4s all the time. If you look at some of the ride lines themselves, right? Some of the ride lines stop at grade 2. Right? If you ride your grade 3 over the grade 2, you don't get an additional effect. So that is actually a perfect way. You can actually just create new grade 3s. New grade 3s. Of course, you can always create new grade 3s with the old name. So if you're like, okay, let's make a new Barrow Magnus grade 3, call it the exact same as the old one. That's like kind of the lazy way to do it. But you could actually create like a totally new, which one ends at grade 2? I think Zorga ends at grade 2. You can create a totally new Zorga. You can make like Super Zorga. And of course, some of the cards won't interact with it, but then you can create just new support regarding with new Zorga, or just the new Zorga, the new support for Zorga, just saying, you know, it just has to have Zorga in its name, not the exact name. There's a lot of possibilities they can do with that. They can continue printing Persona Ride for 3s, or they could introduce a totally new mechanic. And I guess if they're able to do that, I think they can kind of just, it'll kind of push them for a bit, right? I think having a new mechanical theme, like in other card games, like, you know, in Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, a set usually has a specific theme regarding, maybe not Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh is weird, right? But at least I think Magic, you know, Shadowverse, things like that, all have specific themes associated with the set. If they can kind of like push themes like that for like set, like the next two sets each, I think they have something pretty good going forward, right? Because in terms of themes for Vanguard, they've technically been pretty lackluster, except for, let's say, like the overall arching new mechanic theme, which is like, you know, Limit Break 4, new mechanic, crazy. That was pretty poorly received until they released Lock, right? Lock, wow, Lock. And then Reversion, that's a huge theme, right? Then in Legion, okay, Legion was very quick. G, you had Strides, but then you had like G Guardians, and then you have increase in you know, more interactions with the Strides and things like that. So there's always been kind of like overarching themes, big gameplay changing themes. Not actual like smaller themes. Like it's like, you know, sub clans were a thing, but that wasn't very strong. I still think probably the strongest kind of theme was just like the reverse units, and I mean they're getting a lot of kudos right now in V. So I guess going forward, if they can kind of push like themes as well as like, you know, maybe changing. I still want to see more changing of Vanguards, right? More changing of Vanguards. It just seems kind of like you can introduce new ride lines. You can keep on introducing new ride lines, but it's kind of not the same. If you're a Barrow Magnus fan, right, for example, you've been sitting on Barrow Magnus for over a year, but you don't want to play a new Barrow Magnus, you know? I mean, you don't want to play a replacement Barrow Magnus. You might want to play new form of Barrow Magnus or something like that. So I feel like that is kind of like a way to just kind of move forward, because that also prints money, right? That kind of prints money. It's kind of similar to what they did in set 4. But moving forward, you know, it's better. And if you like the old stuff, you can still stick with the old stuff, right? You can still stick with the old stuff. And I mean, the old ride lines and things like that are still very, very cheap, right? Still very cheap. Barrow Magnus, maybe not so. If people are looking at results, that might have gone up slightly. But yeah, it's a win-win for everyone, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. How you think set 5 is gonna be. This is all speculation. This is all predictions. But yeah, do you like how set 4 has really changed up the format? It's definitely reinvigorated like just a lot of the Japanese scene, but of course there's a lot of factors pushing it too. What do you think for English, right? You know, set 4 will have the same impact, and set 5, do we want the same thing as set 4? Basically, just pure, you know, pure crazy awesome, I guess. Yeah, let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.